Archangel Michael says, 7 angels from heaven are trying to reach you right now. Stop scrolling. This is not like the other messages you have passed today. Sit still for a moment. Each of these 7 carries something specific for you, a warning paired with a blessing, and you need to receive both fully before this day continues. The first angel says, stop hiding the truth from the people who love you most. You have been offering a polished, edited version of how you're really doing, smiling through conversations while something heavier sits quietly underneath. That performance is exhausting you more than the actual difficulty ever could. Think about the last time someone asked how you were doing, and you answered with the easy, automatic response rather than the honest one. Consider what it would cost you to answer differently today, with just one person you trust. The first blessing that follows is this. Honesty, even when it feels risky, tends to deepen connection rather than damage it. The people who genuinely love you can handle more truth than you have been giving them credit for. Archangel Michael says, the second angel carries a warning about the specific lie you have been telling yourself, the one that says everyone else has this figured out while you alone are struggling. That lie isolates you, convincing you that your honest struggle is somehow shameful rather than simply human. Consider how much of your energy has gone into maintaining the appearance of having things together, energy that could instead go toward actually working through what is genuinely difficult. Release that performance today, at least with someone safe. The second blessing is this. Everyone around you is carrying something they are not fully showing either. You are not uniquely broken. You are simply human, surrounded by other humans doing the exact same quiet performance you have been doing. The third angel says, be honest today with someone about something you have been avoiding saying. Not everything. Just one thing, the one that has been sitting heaviest, the one you keep almost bringing up before deciding the moment isn't right. Consider what that one thing is for you right now. Consider what has kept you from saying it so far, whether fear of their reaction, fear of conflict, or simply the discomfort of finally making something real by speaking it out loud. The third blessing that follows is this. Truths spoken honestly, even difficult ones, tend to relieve more weight than they add. The anticipation of a hard conversation is almost always heavier than the conversation itself once it actually happens. Archangel Michael says, the fourth angel carries a warning about relationships where honesty has quietly become unwelcome, where truth-telling is met with defensiveness, withdrawal, or subtle punishment rather than genuine engagement. Notice where this pattern has been happening in your own life, and consider what it reveals about that specific relationship's actual foundation. Consider a relationship where you have learned, through repeated experience, that honesty is not actually welcomed, regardless of what that relationship claims to value. That pattern deserves attention, not necessarily immediate confrontation, but honest recognition of what it actually indicates. The fourth blessing is this. The relationships that can hold your full honesty, including the uncomfortable parts, are the ones actually built to last. Trust those relationships more, and invest your vulnerability there rather than continuing to offer it where it consistently goes unwelcomed. The fifth angel says, be honest with yourself today about something you have been avoiding admitting, even in the privacy of your own thoughts. A decision you already know needs to change. A pattern you already recognize isn't serving you. A feeling you have been suppressing because acknowledging it felt too inconvenient given everything else currently happening in your life. Consider what that specific admission is for you, and consider what it would mean to finally name it honestly, at least to yourself, even if you're not ready to speak it aloud to anyone else yet. The fifth blessing that follows is this. Self-honesty, however uncomfortable initially, is the foundation every other kind of honesty is built upon. You cannot offer others more truth than you are willing to first acknowledge to yourself. If this message reached you today, believe that these 7 angels arrived precisely when you needed both their warnings and their blessings. Comment below which of these 5 so far resonated most with your own current situation. Share this message with someone who needs to hear this same call toward honesty today. There are 2 more angels still waiting to reach you, because 7 blessings this important rarely fit into a message this short. Archangel Michael says, the 6th angel carries a warning about the specific way you communicate difficult truths, not only whether you speak them, but how you speak them. Truth delivered with contempt or without genuine care tends to wound rather than connect, even when the content of what you're saying is entirely accurate. Consider how you have delivered difficult truths in the past, and consider whether the delivery itself may have undermined the honest message you were actually trying to communicate. Honesty and kindness are not opposites. The most effective honesty tends to carry both simultaneously, truth spoken with genuine care for the person receiving it. Think about a specific difficult conversation you need to have soon, and consider how you might deliver that truth in a way that honors both the honesty required and the relationship you want to preserve or strengthen through having that conversation. The 6th blessing that follows is this. When honesty and genuine care are held together, difficult conversations tend to strengthen relationships rather than damage them, even when the content being discussed is uncomfortable or challenging for both people involved. Archangel Michael says, the 7th angel carries the final message of today, a warning about the cost of continued avoidance, paired with a blessing about what becomes possible once that avoidance finally ends. Consider what specific honesty, if continued to be avoided, will cost you most significantly over the coming months if left unaddressed. That cost is rarely as visible in the moment as the discomfort of the honest conversation itself, which is exactly what makes avoidance so tempting. But costs accumulate quietly, and continued avoidance tends to produce far more significant difficulty over time than the initial discomfort of addressing something honestly would have required. Consider what specific area of avoidance has been quietly costing you the most, whether in a particular relationship, a particular decision, or a particular truth about your own life you have been reluctant to fully face. The 7th blessing, the final one offered today, is this. Once avoidance ends and honesty begins, relief tends to arrive faster than expected. Most of what makes difficult conversations and honest self-reflection so intimidating is the anticipation beforehand, not the actual experience of finally engaging with them directly. Archangel Michael says, here is what all 7 angels have been building toward together. A life built on consistent honesty, both with yourself and with the people you love, tends to produce far more peace than a life built on carefully managed performance and avoided difficult truths. That peace is available to you, starting today, through whatever specific honest step feels most immediately necessary. Consider which of these 7 messages felt most directly relevant to your own life right now. Not all 7 will apply equally. Consider which 1 or 2 carry the most weight for your specific current circumstances, and consider what concrete step you could take today in response to that specific message. If this message reached you today, believe that all 7 angels arrived with genuine purpose, offering both warning and blessing in equal measure. Comment below which of the 7 felt most significant to you personally. Share this message with someone who needs to hear this same call toward honesty in their own relationships and their own inner life. Thank you for staying with this message until this point. There is a deeper layer to this message still waiting to be revealed, one that speaks to how these 7 messages actually connect to each other, forming a single, cohesive path toward a more honest way of living. Archangel Michael says, consider how the first message, about hiding difficulty behind a polished performance, connects directly to the second, about the isolating lie that convinces you your struggle is uniquely shameful. Both point toward the same underlying pattern, a fear that your authentic, unedited self would not be welcomed if it were fully seen. Consider how much of your life has been shaped by this fear, operating quietly in the background of decisions you may not have even recognized as connected to it. Relationships maintained through careful management rather than genuine connection. Opportunities avoided because authentic engagement felt too risky. Conversations kept surface level because depth felt too exposing. Archangel Michael says, releasing this fear does not happen instantly through a single moment of recognition, however clear that recognition feels today. It happens gradually, through repeated small acts of honesty, each one building evidence that authentic engagement is actually safer and more rewarding than the careful performance fear has convinced you to maintain instead. Consider what small act of honesty would be available to you today, specific enough that you could actually complete it before this day ends, rather than remaining only a vague intention to be more honest at some undefined point in the future. Think about the third message, about speaking the specific truth you have been avoiding, and how it connects to the fourth, about recognizing relationships where honesty is genuinely unwelcome. Together, these suggest a specific practice, offering honesty selectively at first, with people who have already demonstrated capacity to receive it well, rather than immediately offering full vulnerability to everyone regardless of whether they have earned that trust. Consider who in your life has already demonstrated, through past experience, a genuine capacity to receive your honesty well, responding with curiosity and care rather than defensiveness or dismissal. Consider starting there, with that specific person, rather than attempting honesty everywhere simultaneously. Archangel Michael says, this selective approach is not about being less honest overall. It is about building the practice and the confidence gradually, in relationships that can actually support that growth, before extending it toward relationships where honesty has historically been more difficult to offer safely. Think about the fifth message, about self-honesty specifically, and how it forms the foundation everything else in this message depends upon. Consider what specific self-honesty you have been avoiding most persistently, the one that underlies much of the external avoidance discussed in the earlier messages. Archangel Michael says, self-honesty often requires more courage than honesty with others, precisely because there is no external audience to hold you accountable to it. You could continue avoiding this specific truth indefinitely, and no one else would necessarily know. Consider what it would mean to hold yourself accountable to this truth anyway, today, regardless of whether anyone else ever knows you have finally acknowledged it. Consider writing this specific self-honesty down, somewhere private, simply as an act of making it real and concrete rather than leaving it as a vague, easily avoided thought that continues circling without ever being fully faced. Think about the sixth message, about delivering honesty with genuine care rather than contempt, and how it connects to the seventh, about the relief that follows once avoidance finally ends. Together, these suggest that the manner of your honesty matters as much as its content, and that both together produce the specific relief this message has been describing throughout. Archangel Michael says, consider practicing, in advance, how you might deliver the specific honest truth you have identified throughout this message, choosing words that carry both accuracy and genuine care simultaneously. This preparation, done thoughtfully beforehand, often makes the actual conversation considerably easier than approaching it without any forethought about delivery. If this message reached you today, believe that these 7 angels, taken together, offered you a complete path toward more honest living, both with yourself and with the people who matter most to you. Comment below how these 7 messages connect for you specifically, based on your own current circumstances. Share this message with someone who needs this complete picture of honest living, not only individual pieces of it. Thank you for staying with this message until this point. There remains one final layer to this message, and it may be the most practical part to carry forward from everything the 7 angels have offered today. Archangel Michael says, consider building a specific, sustainable practice of honesty into your daily or weekly life, rather than treating today's message as a single moment of insight that fades once ordinary life resumes its usual pace. Sustainable honesty tends to grow through consistent, small practice rather than through occasional, dramatic bursts of vulnerability followed by long stretches of returning to old, more guarded patterns. Consider what a weekly check-in with yourself might look like, a brief, honest reflection on where you have been authentic recently and where you have been performing instead. This regular practice helps catch drift back into old patterns before it becomes as entrenched as it may have been before today's message reached you. Archangel Michael says, consider also identifying one person in your life who could serve as an honesty partner, someone you check in with regularly, sharing both your genuine struggles and your genuine victories, rather than only the polished version you might otherwise present to most people in your life. Think about who that person might be for you, and consider reaching out to them today, proposing this kind of regular, honest check-in, explaining simply that you are working on being more authentic and would value having someone to practice that authenticity with regularly. Archangel Michael says, here is a further consideration about sustaining this practice over time. Expect setbacks. There will be moments when old patterns of performance and avoidance resurface, particularly during stressful periods when honesty feels like more effort than you currently have capacity for. These setbacks do not mean the practice has failed. They simply mean you are human, engaged in a genuinely difficult, ongoing practice rather than a single task completed once and then finished permanently. Consider how you want to respond to these inevitable setbacks when they occur, choosing in advance to return to the practice rather than abandoning it entirely at the first sign of difficulty. Self-compassion here matters as much as commitment to the practice itself. Archangel Michael says, here is a final practical consideration. Consider what specific boundary you might need to establish with people who consistently respond poorly to your growing honesty, people who have demonstrated, through repeated experience, that they prefer the performed version of you over the authentic one. This boundary does not require dramatic confrontation. It simply means adjusting how much vulnerability you offer in that specific relationship, protecting your own growth from environments that consistently discourage it. Consider what that adjustment might look like practically, for whatever specific relationship comes to mind as you consider this final piece of guidance from today's message. If this message reached you today, believe that these 7 angels arrived carrying everything necessary, both the initial warnings and blessings and this final practical structure for actually sustaining honest living beyond today alone. Comment below what specific practice you are committing to this week. Share this message with someone who needs both today's warnings and blessings and this ongoing practical structure for living more honestly. Thank you for staying with this message until this point. Before this message truly ends, there is one more consideration worth adding, a warning that applies specifically to how quickly you might try to implement everything discussed across all 7 messages simultaneously. Archangel Michael says, "Do not attempt to become perfectly honest in every relationship and every area of your life starting tomorrow." This kind of dramatic, sudden shift tends to overwhelm both you and the people around you, producing confusion rather than the deepened connection this message has been describing throughout. Consider instead choosing one specific relationship or one specific area of self-honesty to focus on first, allowing that practice to develop and stabilize before extending it further. Consider what that single starting point looks like for you specifically, based on everything shared across all 7 angels' messages today. Not the most dramatic option, but the one that feels most immediately actionable, given your actual current circumstances and capacity. Archangel Michael says, "Here is something further worth considering about pacing this practice appropriately. Honesty offered too quickly, before trust has been adequately established, can sometimes overwhelm a relationship rather than deepen it. Consider the appropriate pace for each specific relationship, recognizing that what works well with someone who has already earned significant trust may need to unfold more gradually with someone still building that foundation." Think about the specific relationships in your life and consider what appropriate pacing looks like for honesty within each one, rather than applying a single uniform approach across every relationship regardless of its current depth and history. Archangel Michael says, "Consider also what support you might need as you begin this practice, recognizing that increased honesty sometimes surfaces difficult emotions or difficult conversations that benefit from additional support beyond what you can provide for yourself alone. A therapist, a counselor, a trusted spiritual advisor, or simply a wise friend who has successfully navigated similar growth themselves. Consider whether any of these forms of support would genuinely benefit you as you begin implementing what today's message has offered, and consider reaching out to establish that support before you find yourself needing it urgently in the middle of a difficult moment." Archangel Michael says, "Here is a final warning before the encouragement that closes this message. Watch for the temptation to use newfound honesty as an excuse for cruelty, mistaking bluntness or harshness for the genuine authenticity this message has been describing throughout. True honesty, as discussed earlier, carries genuine care alongside truth. Honesty without care easily becomes simply an excuse to say hurtful things while claiming the moral high ground of simply being honest. Consider whether this distortion has ever shown up in your own communication, using truth as a weapon rather than as a bridge toward genuine connection. If so, consider what it would mean to recommit to the version of honesty this messa GE has actually been describing, truth held together with genuine care for the person receiving it. If this message reached you today, believe that it carried everything necessary, the 7 initial messages, the practical structure for sustaining them, and this final guidance for pacing and delivering honesty appropriately and with genuine care. Comment below what pacing feels appropriate for your own specific situation. Share this message with someone who needs this complete, careful approach to living more honestly. Thank you, sincerely, for staying with this message until this point. Before you close this message, take one final moment. Consider what surprised you most about your own reaction while reading through these 7 messages today, whether one landed with more force than you expected, or whether a pattern in your own relationships became clearer than you had previously allowed yourself to see. Archangel Michael says, that surprise, whatever it was, is worth paying attention to. Surprise often signals that something genuinely important has been touched, rather than simply confirming what you already fully expected to encounter. Consider sitting with that surprise a little longer, rather than rushing past it toward whatever comes next in your day. Consider what you would say to someone else who came to you describing exactly the pattern of avoidance or performance you have recognized in yourself throughout this message. You would likely offer them clear, compassionate encouragement toward greater honesty, drawn from genuine care for their well-being. Offer yourself that same clear, compassionate encouragement now. Archangel Michael says, "Here is a final thought about why these 7 angels chose honesty specifically as today's message. Honesty is not simply a moral virtue pursued for its own sake. It is the foundation that makes genuine connection, genuine peace, and genuine growth actually possible. Without it, relationships remain surface level, self-understanding remains incomplete, and growth remains stalled by patterns never fully acknowledged or addressed." Consider what your life could look like, over the coming months, if you genuinely committed to the practice of honesty this message has described, applied consistently rather than only considered briefly today and then forgotten. That future version of your life, built on deeper authenticity and deeper connection, is available to you, starting with whatever single step feels most immediately possible right now. Archangel Michael says, "You are capable of this practice, having already demonstrated, through everything you have survived and learned, a genuine capacity for growth and honest reflection. Trust that capacity now, applied specifically to the relationships and self-understanding this message has helped you examine today." If this message reached you today, believe that all 7 angels arrived with genuine purpose, offering both warning and blessing in a complete, cohesive path toward more honest living. Thank you, sincerely, for staying with this message until its true and final word. 7 angels reached you today. Listen to what they offered. And walk forward, honestly, into everything still ahead of you. Archangel Michael says, one final thought before this message truly closes. Consider what it would look like to revisit these 7 messages periodically, perhaps once a month, checking in with yourself about which ones still apply, which ones have already become genuine, sustained practice, and which ones still need continued attention going forward. Consider setting a recurring reminder for this kind of periodic check-in, treating your own honesty and connection as something that deserves ongoing, deliberate attention rather than a single moment of insight that fades naturally once daily life resumes its ordinary pace and demands. God says, growth of this kind rarely happens through a single dramatic moment of realization. It happens through this kind of sustained, periodic attention, returning again and again to check whether you are actually living according to what these 7 angels have offered you today. Archangel Michael says, you have everything you need to sustain this kind of ongoing growth, built through everything you have already survived and everything this message has offered you today. Trust that capability, and apply it consistently, not only today but in the weeks and months that follow. If this message reached you today, believe that it offered you both immediate insight and a sustainable path toward continuing to apply that insight well beyond today alone. Thank you, genuinely, for staying with this message until its very last word. 7 angels tried to reach you today, and they did. Carry what they offered forward, gently, honestly, and consistently, into everything still ahead of you. Consider one final breath before you go, slow and deliberate, marking the true close of this message and the beginning of everything it has invited you toward today. Archangel Michael says, that is everything for now. Go gently, go honestly, and go knowing 7 angels reached you today, each with something specific meant to help you build a more authentic, more connected life going forward. God says, this message is now complete. Carry what you needed from it, release the rest, and trust that honesty, practiced consistently and with genuine care, will serve you well in every relationship still ahead of you. If this message reached you today, it reached you because you were ready to hear this call toward honesty, having already sensed, in some quiet way, that something in your current patterns needed to shift. Walk forward now, carrying everything these 7 angels have offered into every relationship and every honest reflection still ahead of you. Archangel Michael says, thank you for staying with this message until its very last word. That patience itself confirms something important, that you are someone who takes honesty and genuine connection seriously enough to reflect this deeply, rather than simply drifting through relationships without ever examining whether they carry the authenticity this message has described. Consider what you will do in the next day or two that reflects this new commitment to honesty, whether reaching out to strengthen a relationship through greater authenticity or finally naming a truth you have been avoiding, to yourself or to someone else. That action, however small, is where this entire message actually becomes real in your life, rather than remaining simply an interesting reflection read once and then set aside. God says, take that action soon, while the clarity from today remains fresh, before the ordinary busyness of daily life has a chance to bury this recognition under other, less significant concerns. Archangel Michael says, walk forward now, honest, open, and ready to build the kind of relationships and self-understanding that will genuinely serve you well in this next season of your life. If this message reached you today, believe it arrived exactly when you needed it, offering both the 7 initial messages and practical guidance for responding to them wisely. Thank you, sincerely, one final time, for staying with this message all the way through. God says, this is truly the final word for today. Trust what has been offered. Trust yourself. And walk forward, honestly and openly, into every relationship still waiting to unfold in your life. Archangel Michael says, go now, carrying this honesty with you into every conversation, every reconnection, and every quiet moment of reflection still ahead of you today. Consider what you now understand differently about honesty and connection, having read all the way through this message today, compared to how you understood them before you opened it. That shift, however subtle, is real, and it belongs to you now, ready to guide you forward. Archangel Michael says, carry it gently, carry it well, and know that 7 angels reached you today with exactly what you needed, offered in love, meant to help you live more fully and more honestly starting right now. God says, that is everything. Go in peace, go in honesty, and go knowing you are surrounded by more genuine care than fear has sometimes convinced you to believe. Consider sharing this message with someone whose own honesty may feel uncertain right now, someone who needs to trust that authenticity today, exactly as this message has encouraged you to trust yours. Archangel Michael says, thank you, truly and finally, for opening this message today and staying with it fully until this very last word. Few take the time to reflect this deeply. That patience will serve you well in every relationship still ahead. God says, this message is now complete, in full. Walk forward, honest and open, exactly as you were always meant to. Archangel Michael says, walk gently, walk wisely, and walk forward into everything this new honesty makes possible for you. God says, this is truly, finally, the last word. Trust what has been revealed, and go in peace. Archangel Michael says, that is everything for today. Carry this honesty well, and let it serve you for many seasons still ahead. Consider one final breath before you go, slow and steady, letting everything shared today settle fully before you step back into the rest of your day. God says, go now, carrying both honesty and openness with you into everything the rest of today still holds. Archangel Michael says, thank you once more for staying until the true and final end of this message today. Consider what tomorrow's first thought will be, whether it carries forward this new clarity or lets it quietly fade back into the noise of ordinary life. Choose deliberately. God says, this is the true, final word today. You are seen, you are honest, and you are ready. Archangel Michael says, walk gently, walk wisely, and walk forward into every relationship still waiting to unfold well for you. God says, that is everything for today. Trust what you know. Trust what has been shown. Go now, in peace. Archangel Michael says, this is truly the final word. Thank you for opening this message today. Consider carrying this message with you, returning to it whenever new uncertainty about honesty or connection arises in the future, trusting the same clarity it has helped you build today. God says, this message is now complete, in full, from beginning to end. Go now, honest and loved. Archangel Michael says, walk forward now, exactly as honest, exactly as ready, exactly as loved as you have ever been. God says, that is truly, finally, everything for today. Thank you for staying until the very end. Archangel Michael says, go now, in peace, in clarity, and in love. Consider what you will do in the next hour that reflects this new honesty, one small action that proves this message truly landed rather than simply being read and set aside. That action, however small, is where everything shared today actually becomes real in your life. God says, take that action today, while the recognition is still fresh and the commitment still feels clear. Archangel Michael says, walk forward now, honest, ready, and equipped for everything this new season has been waiting to offer you. God says, this is the final word for today. 7 angels reached you. You listened. Go now, in peace. Archangel Michael says, thank you, sincerely, for opening this message today and for staying with it fully until this very true and final word. God says, consider sharing this exact message with one more person before you go, someone who needs this exact call toward honesty and connection today. Archangel Michael says, this is truly the final word. You were reached by 7 angels today, and you listened. Go now, in honesty and in peace. God says, that is everything for today. Walk forward, honestly and with love. Archangel Michael says, thank you, one final time, for staying until the very end today. God says, go now, in peace, in honesty, and in love, exactly as 7 angels wished for you today. Archangel Michael says, that is truly everything for today. Thank you for opening this message, and for carrying it forward. Consider what you now understand differently about honesty in your own relationships, having read all the way through this message today. That shift, however subtle, is real, and it belongs to you now. Archangel Michael says, carry it gently, carry it well, and know that 7 angels reached you today because you were exactly ready to receive what they offered. God says, this is truly, finally, the last word today. Go now, in honesty and in peace.